the movie. Our questions we gained our questions from the movie, but also from Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Plugger's book, Apollo 13, and Gene Kranz's book, Failure is Not an Option. So you guys ready to use your imagination a little bit? Yeah, baby. All right. So on April 11th, Apollo 13 left the launch pad at 1:13 Central Standard Time, headed for historic destiny. Interestingly, many have noted Apollo 13's launch time is 13:13 military time, perhaps an omen for the ill-fated mission. Let's watch the launch of the movie. Now that's a ride. And any of us would give an arm and a leg for a ride. And for Fred and Jack, it was their first and last time for a launch into space. And so Fred, I want to ask you, for all of us who would love to do that, what did that first ride feel like? For Fred.
Well, I guess it was my first ride. Jim had a few before.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Actually, it was something I looked very much forward to. I'd flown two backup crew assignments. In Apollo, as a backup, you flew equally with the prime and were ready to enter the mission, as happened with Jack 2.5 days before launch. We literally could have changed out a whole crew in the last week before launch and carried on. So I was anxious to go. I was, as you might imagine, pretty excited. The ride itself, though, other than the shaking you got, because the booster 4 engines that gimbal of the 5 were kind of herky-jerky, and that was exaggerated by being in a capsule way up on the top. So I'm comparing it to airplane experience. G levels, though, were less than what you do in acrobatics, or I did and we did in fighter airplanes. So the G level was fairly modest at about 4.5 max. And of course, we're laying in couches, which is a lot easier to do than sitting upright in a seat. And the vibration level was there, but not too pronounced, except we lost the engine in the second stage. One shut down automatically due to POGO, dynamic instability in the feed to that engine. And it shut itself off, but it was doing vibration for a very short period of time during that part of the launch. But as I said, otherwise, compared to fighter airplane experience, it wasn't that exciting.
And it wasn't scary. It wasn't scary.
Yeah.
Not scary? Okay, I'm all for that. I'd sure be a little bit of scary. Now, Jim, in a way, you've been preparing for a trip to the moon your whole life. You built rockets as a kid, attended the Naval Academy, did 3 earlier missions, Gemini 7, Gemini 12, Apollo 8. Now, what would you tell the young people here tonight about following their dreams and our future in space?
Well, I think that everybody that's interested in the aerospace industry and the space program, that the first thing to do is to get a good education. And certainly I'm really proud to see that the people here are doing that job, to encourage STEM education and aviation, and follow that in with perhaps getting people like ourselves to talk about that, because I think it's very, very important throughout the country to get engineers, whether you go into space type programs or not, but engineers and scientists to keep this country strong.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, now Gene, probably the best best looking guy in Mission Control, and his wife made that trademark vest, and it's just, you know, it just is a trademark. But what was going through your mind as the countdown and launch took place?
Actually, the countdown and launch is relatively straightforward. I've gone through 3 previous Saturn launches, and you have the various milestones you go through, and you can sense the tempo of the countdown by listening to the launch director. You can get the various reports coming in from the various teams. I've got my own team in Mission Control, and we're always looking at that clock, making sure that we don't have weather problems, some range safety, etc. But once the liftoff occurs, it's real interesting. These guys talk about the sensations, the feelings, and this kind of stuff. In Mission Control, for the flight control team, we did not provide video at launch. Basically, I had in front of me the booster engine displays, the Parasite theirs, I had the trajectory ones, but the dominant display is the one on the plot board up front. And you listen for these various calls because there were 4 basic abort modes that you'd go through powered flight. Each one that basically you went through, and we're now on to the next. It's just a breath of relief, you know, go on until finally you get to the point where you can lose an engine out there, but basically you still have the capability of attaining orbit. So it's really watching the series of displays, getting the feeling for the timing, the clocks, etc., giving the crews the information of the Capcom, let the crew know what we're seeing from a standpoint of status. So really, it's, I won't say it's a relaxing time, but it's something that just is, you're getting the mission off the ground, you're ready to go. And that's the key thing. Once you get up there in orbit, let's go for it.
Okay, all right, so here we go. Okay, so after our launch, except for an 8-second premature engine cutoff, our Apollo 13 flight proceeded eastward around the Earth and headed towards the Moon. Along the way, the Odyssey command service module docked successfully with the Aquarius lunar module and fired engines to leave a free return trajectory. In other words, prepare for a moon landing. About 200,000 miles from Earth on April 13th at 9:07 p.m., a routine action caused a storm.
Tanks stir. Roger that.
Hey, we've got a problem here.
What do you need?
Nothing, stir the tanks.
Whoa. Hey.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
As you uttered those famous words.
Well, let me, first of all, tell you that that was a complete, something that we never expected. At first, though, Fred is the guy that always pulls the certain things, you know, the unexpected things. And there was what was that called again? The repress valve. And during the flight before the accident, he had occasionally pulled this repress valve and it gave a kind of a big bang. So when we heard this, I looked up at Fred thinking that he was going to be funny again. And I said, you know, more than one time, Fred, we should do this. And then I looked at his face and I could tell from his expression, he had absolutely no idea. And I was coming down into the command module again, so I looked at Jack Swaker to see if he knew what was causing all this commotion and this explosion. And his eyes were as wide as saucers. I knew he said that he didn't know what caused this explosion, and why am I here? Why isn't Ken Manley here? and then finally, you know, it came to pass that as time went on, we thought at first that a meteor had hit the lunar module. and we were losing oxygen. And so we tried to put the hatch back in to close off the lunar module, just like a submarine crew would close off. And Jack tried to do it, and he couldn't do it. And then I said, Jack, let me give it a try. I couldn't close the hatch either. And of course, it was necessary to come back to land with that hatch open. And finally, we just tied it to the couch, and we realized that if a meteor had hit us, we'd have been dead by that time. So then we had to kind of really figure out what was really going wrong. And through a series of talks with the mission control, we found out.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have one other question follow up to that. Are there any atheists in this disabled airplane? Or a disabled spaceship? Atheist.
I hope not.
No kidding. Okay, Gene, you called on your technicians to settle down and called in experts across many disciplines to work the problem. Your leadership and management lessons from the experience are legendary, and we could spend hours learning from them. But briefly, what would you say are the 2 or 3 most important crisis management lessons from your experience?
To a great extent, from my standpoint, I think each flight director had an entirely different technique they used. Basically, I was probably the most structured of the flight directors. So basically, as soon as I had a problem, I had a checklist that I'd go down. It was right on the right-hand corner of the console. The first thing was really try to stabilize the situation so you get time to think. Now, going back to the explosion time, actually I went through 3 different phases. I was behind the power curve related to the crew. We got the call from the crew, but we had already had 2 electrical glitches during the mission, so I thought, this is an easy problem. We'll work on this when we put the crew to sleep. That wasn't the case. About 3 minutes later, one of my controllers came in and said, hey, we saw some kind of a pretty big shock associated with that, so that was tread lightly lest to aggravate the situation. Finally, Jim identified that basically we were venting the oxygen and then it was kicked into survival mode. That was about 12 minutes. And that was when basically I had to address the crew. I said, okay, every flight controller, settle down. Quit your guessing. Let's start working the problem. Electrical bus A is still good. Don't do anything to split up the lunar modules attached. We're going to use that as a lifeboat. So I think the key thing is to recognize when you're faced with the decision and you have to move this team out. And I think was the key point of the mission for me.
Thank you very much. Okay, Fred, you knew the limb best, and it soon became obvious Aquarius would become the mission's lifeboat for survival. Did you feel confident, worried, hopeful, or what?
My emotions were when I got back into the command module, I was actually still in the lunar module. Jim and I had staged a kind of a show and tell TV show when this happened shortly after, and I was still putting away equipment we had pulled out. When I arrived back in the position, for me, initially it was confusion. We had 7 caution and warning lights on, a blue computer restart light, and a master alarm, which did not correlate because it went across several systems that are not integrated in those, call it rudimentary spacecraft at that time, not like an integrated systems in aircraft or spacecraft today. And the next thing, when I scanned the panel within the first minute, it was obvious from meter readings at the bottom of the gauges, several different readings from different sensors, that we had lost oxygen tank 2. So at that point, I didn't think it was still life-threatening. We still had, I thought tank 1 was still there. And I just had I was almost sick to my stomach with disappointment, because I knew without reference in mission rules, this was an abort. And all that training and all that work, and Jim and I weren't going to get to land on the moon. So that was my feelings at that time.
Under Gene Kranz, NASA Tiger team set about solving critical challenges from managing consumables and electrical problems to air quality and trajectory calculations. You decided on the slingshot free return trajectory, and you disappeared around the moon to set the record on farthest human travel from Earth. As you came around the backside to see Earth again, you also saw your intended landing spot in Promoro. The movie raises interesting reflections as you flew over the area where you would have been the third American mission landing on the moon. Let's take a look at that.
Look, it's Frau Morrow. I can see our landing site.
Wow. Look at the Tsiolkovsky crater. I can't believe how bright the ejected blanket is.
It's like snow. It's beautiful. It's Marienburg to the north.
Okay, Jim. It had to have been heartbreaking realizing you were not going to land on the moon. Not many people know that you were part of the Apollo 11 story back up to Neil Armstrong. How did you just personally adjust, and why did you make the decision to stop flying? To not go again?
Well, we actually had no decision to make. We had to get back home again. And coming through, the three of us were getting very close to the moon, and we did do a maneuver to get back onto the free return course, which was very necessary to do that. So we thought, well, one crisis is over. Let's see what else is to be done. But it turned out that we didn't have enough electrical power to get home, and there was a necessary to speed up if we were going to get back home safely before the batteries died. And so as we got close to the moon, the ground called up and said, look we think we have a solution. Ken Mannity was actually working with this thing, and they said, as you roll around the moon and start back again, we'll have you light the descent engine a second time, our landing engine, and perhaps we can speed up your return home and get you back into the atmosphere before the batteries die. So we said, that's fine. And then they said, you're getting close to the moon, so when it pulls around to the far side, you lose communication with us. And I said, well, I have my two companions with me. I have Jack, who's listening very intently, and I have Fred, who's also listening. And so we said, okay, here, we'll give you the instructions. And pretty soon they sent up the instructions to me, and I started to copy, thinking that if I did not get all the information, that Jack and Fred would also pick it up. They had cameras in their hands. They were looking at the moon. And I said, what are your plans, Joe? And they said, when we go around the far side of the moon, we're going to take pictures.
Yeah.
I said, if we don't get home, you won't get them developed. But anyway, Jack and Fred got the photography. I got the instructions. And 2.5 hours later, we lit the engine a second time to speed us up to get us home.
But obviously there's some regrets. Obviously there's some regrets. I mean, not getting there, but you're still a team.
Well, with regards to that, Sean, yes. Remember, this was my second time up here. The only reason I was here was to land on the moon. And when we couldn't land, I was very much disappointed to go around. And of course, Fred and Jack were looking at the moon for the very first time, and I just, I wasn't interested then.
How about you, Fred?
I took some good pictures.
You see, last night he wasn't there, and so we didn't get that story. You were all calm, cool, and collected.
And Jim had been there before on Apollo 8, so he'd gotten to circle it about 10 times, so it was all the old ground to him, but for Jack and I, it was all new.
And you got them developed, right? What do you think of that? Okay.